On a scale of 1 to 10, how worried were you that something like this would ever happen?
Oh, at least a 1 or a 2, because nothing bad had ever happened around here. Uh, the most was there was a few shootings and stuff, but it was between other people. It didn't necessarily mean Daddy. And most of what he dealt with was drunks and thieves, and you know. Uh, I guess maybe he gave a few tickets. I don't even remember that.
So he wasn't very concerned about it either?
No, I never worried about it. Never thought about it, because that kind of stuff just wasn't going on. I don't remember what day of the week it was, but it was in July of 1969, and Mother and my brother Bobby was riding around in the police car with Daddy, and the phone on the square, they had a payphone on the square, and it was ringing, and Daddy stopped and answered it. And someone told him there was a family disturbance down at the apartment building on Phillips Street, and he knew who lived there. He knew the husband and the wife both, and they'd had confrontations before, and he'd had to answer to them. So he goes down there, and he gets and knocks on the door. Their little boy was outside playing, and he come over and was standing beside him, and Daddy knocks on the door and says, "Bill, let's come on out here and let's talk about this. And Bill shot him through the door. It went through the door and through Daddy's belt and severed the artery in his stomach. He picked the little boy up and carried him around to the back side of the building, and he shot through the window, and I think they said he hit Bill. Anyway, he shot twice, but he walked back to the car and fell down on his knees and told Mom he had been hit. And Bobby was like seven or eight, I can't remember for sure, but he jumps out of the car and runs up the street trying to find somebody to help him. And he said he ran until he saw a house with a light on, and he went to that house and knocked on the door and told him that Daddy had been shot and everything. By then, though, people from town, from the neighborhood and everything, had come up to and saw what was happening. And somehow, and I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that whoever Bobby told was the one that called Dr. Wallace. Anyway, Dr. Wallace gets there, and the city police are there by now, and they go in, and Mrs. Mayfield had been shot once, and Mr. Mayfield had been shot 5 times, and they think at least one, maybe 2 of them was from Daddy. And when he come out the door, he said, I shot Clarice, I shot Orval, and I shot myself. And they put him in a car, and I take that back. They may have waited for the ambulance for him. But Daddy asked Dr. Wallace to give him a shot because he was hurting, and Dr. Wallace told him he couldn't. And told the city policeman and one of the gentlemen standing there to take him in the police car on to Harrison. So they put Daddy in the back, and he laid his head in Mama's lap, and she said he didn't say anything. I think I remember she said he took his false teeth out and gave them to her. And when they got into the city limits of Harrison, he leaned over and threw up in the floorboard and laid his head back down on her lap, and he was gone then. And they told her at the hospital that if it had happened at the hospital, they couldn't have saved him because it severed the artery, and he bled to death. There was, she said, hardly any blood on the outside of his clothes, but he bled internally.
Did the public respect your dad's profession?
Yes, they did. And after his funeral, they had a collection, and they collected enough money, and they bought his tombstone. And on his tombstone it says, in memory of the family, or in memory of the friends. So they did.
Were people skeptical of police capability like they are today?
Well, I don't think so, but one reason for that was because there wasn't the crime there is today, or as serious a crimes. I mean, there was some crimes, but not like they are nowadays. And, dope and stuff like that wasn't ever talked about back then.
Do you feel like the situation might have been different with any of the technology we have today?
Well, maybe maybe if there was a vest, bulletproof vest, maybe if there was cell phones to where, like for the ambulance or the rescue could have come. I don't think it would have made any difference for him, but for what we had, that was it.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how worried were you about Michael being injured or worse while he was doing his job as a police officer?
5.
Do you feel like policemen are in more danger today than they were 50 years ago?
Yes,
Why?
because of more crime, more drug use, and more rioting and the type of civil things we have this time.
Has public respect for the profession changed significantly?
Yes, I think people as a rule have lost respect for our law enforcement, our firefighters, and our people that try to help the public and keep the laws.
Has police opinion toward the people changed? Did the police treat criminals the same as they used to?
Had the police changed from the way they used to be? Probably yes, because in the way they have to deal with our public, they have to have a very forceful reaction sometimes with the people. So therefore they have to be more prepared. They have to be more willing to step out and put their life in risk because of the many dangers. I feel because of the many drug-related problems we have, the meth labs now are even been built in car trunks. So I don't think there's any way that I myself or the general public really realize the danger that the policemen put themselves in to protect us.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how worried were you that you could be injured doing your job?
Probably about a 3.
What kind of training did you have to go through before you could be on the job?
I went through a reserve class at the sheriff's office in 2012. It was a 110-hour class, and we went through, building house searches, being pepper sprayed, and being able, taking the pepper spray and still being able to maintain stability and to do the job, even though, we've been, partially blinded by a substance. And firearms training, you had to be able to, hit a certain pattern in a certain grid and pass. And it was just a lot of in-class time, on ticket writing, how to handle yourself, how to approach. If a situation arose where, somebody got out of hand, how to handle that and take control of it within your means without, stepping out of the boundaries.
Right. Were you respected by the public, or were people suspicious of your capability?
It was kind of a give and take thing. Some, there was a lot more, not being appreciated and, just stuff like that.
What kind of crimes did you see on average?
Mostly DWI, and there was 2 or 3 times where we had domestic cases where I had to take pictures of the victim where they'd been beaten.
How large a role did technology play in your ability to effectively do your job?
It worked out pretty good. I mean, compared to the way it used to be, we've got a lot of the cars now have computers in them where you can pull up what you need to on while you're, behind the suspect or person.
So you can be prepared for what you're facing.
You can run their plates and the information will be coming back to you, fed back through your computer as you're pulling them over. And that way you kind of know, you know, what you're dealing with, if they have any warrants, if they're dangerous, officer safety, you know, things like that. But there's times where, you know, I may have been in a different unit without the computer, so I had to rely on dispatch to get it back to me. And sometimes they were a little slow at it.
The majority of crimes that my great-grandpa faced were thefts. How often did you deal with burglaries?
Never had any burglaries while I was on. That was one thing that I never had to deal with.